Hey, I'm Wendell G. Welcome. I got to fix that. Welcome back to the WBL. Even now, I keep wanting to say UBL, so I'm sure I say that sometimes. We're at mid-April 2045, 2 weeks into the regular season. We're held up while waiting to complete the offline draft. So while we're held up for a little bit, I wanted to explain the Filetti trade a little bit yesterday. There was some. I was a little bit surprised at the reaction for it. I'm looking down at my smartphone right now, how slow it is. I think smartphones today are like the personal computer in about 1990. Everybody's scrambling to upgrade to a 286 and then a 386 with a 40 meg hard drive. I think in 10, 20 years, these phones are going to be fantastic. Right now, slow and a pain in the ass. Anyway, maybe it's just my phone. Maybe it's just my cheap ass buying a cheap phone. I don't know. Probably is. So, Gooksta had talked about, he had shopped Reginaldo Filetti a few times already this off season. I had seen it, and I had looked at Filetti, and I had liked him. But stuff happened. I moved Donald Mason, who was a lefty, and I was suddenly left with no lefties in my rotation. And I began looking down through my farm system and realized my farm system had a paucity of lefties too. And so I had some guys in my farm system. I had let them go. Biceps, for instance, was a lefty who never developed a high stuff rating, and so I let him go. And Doe promptly snapped him up and used him as a loogie pitcher to great effect on in Vegas's bullpen. Well, so I'm stuck without lefties in my pitching, and I started looking at Key West's pitching lineup. It was not just Filetti, but it was also Luis Ibarria. Both of them lefties, and Key West had Ibarria set up as a closer. And interestingly, when I went to put him in my organization, I did let the AI do the pitching, let the AI set the pitching and the rotation. And the AI put Ibarria as closer. So I thought that was fascinating. He doesn't have the kind of stuff rating that you want from a closer, but so I think I'll just use him in my bullpen as a loogie, or loogie with a secondary option of middle relief. So how did this deal come about? A couple of things happened. The deal itself happened I went back and checked our PMs. It started at 6:01 p.m. and was done and accepted by 6:17 p.m. So it took 16 minutes to do this deal. And about 6 p.m.s, about 4 p.m.s from me and 2 from Gooksta, something like that. So it was genuinely a blitzkrieg. It was just boom, let's do this. And at the time, I knew he was shopping Filetti, but I didn't know that. I didn't know what his ask price was for Filetti. I was looking at Filetti, and I was thinking about my discussion with Orlando on our live cast about, or our podcast about how I suck at the draft, and how other guys in the OOTP enjoy the draft, in the WBL rather enjoy the draft, and so I was thinking about that. I was thinking about pitching. I had quizzed Lando on his pitching philosophy and setting up pitching. And one thing that Lando didn't say, which I was looking at after our conversation, was that he had talked about shopping some players, especially, he talked about Waz being in his last year, possibly, and he's been shopping Na. So I looked at Lando's pitching rotation. I realized Lando's top 2 aces are left-handers. And you look around the league, and the most valued pitchers and aces are very often, more often than 20%, they are often lefties. And here I am in my Moscow lineup without a lefty. And so um, so all those things sort of combined, and I knew, what really prompted it. The momentary impulse was, um, but at Lisbon, Sean was talking about his everybody on his roster being for sale, except he made a comment that his rotation was pretty bad and had really gotten hammered in that first week of regular season. And Gookster responded. He said, "You want Filetti?" And I don't know. A few minutes later, an hour later, or something, all that just suddenly exploded in my brain, and I was like, "You know what? I have a surfeit of pitching, and yet, I'm looking at the other thing that was percolating was Nico and Sasaki are both in the last year of their contracts, and Nico is making 15 and Sasaki is making 18, and I was scrambling a lot last year to go ahead and set up a transition rotation or a post Nico, post Sasaki rotation. And anyway, I thought, you know what? Here's a lefty. He would fit into my rotation. He can go. He can pitch. And 4 good pitches, or at least 3 good pitches, 3 plus pitches, and a pitch that is projected to become a plus pitch. He's got high intelligence, which is an attribute that I value in pitching. And here's the opportunity. If I want it, seize it. And just, it was like a lightning stroke in my brain. I was like, boom. I PM'd Gookston. He said, "You take a first for Filetti?" And then I almost immediately went back and said, "Oh man, I don't have. I actually have gone a little bit underwater in my budget, and so I couldn't take on even his league minimum salary of $490,000. I couldn't even take that." And I thought, I scrambled immediately to look at my roster and see who I could part with, and came up with Duarte. So Duarte. So I came back and I said, "How about my first?" And how about this other idea? And Gookster came back and said, "I need a little bit more for that, man." And so we eventually, we hammered out pretty quickly the deal of the first and the second for Filetti and Ibarria, and then he sends me, and I send Duarte as part of the deal. Duarte is a curious dude. He never really hit. Well, let me back up. He hit the first year. Let's go back and look at his stats. He has fallen off, though. You see, he started the first week or so of 2045 hitting 091. 091 with an OBP of 091. His eye of 35, I went back and started tracking his performance over previous years, and his OBP tracks at about 20 percentage points higher, 20 points higher, not percentage points, but you know what I mean, 20 points higher than his average. Like here, his average last year in 2044, his average was 217 and his OBP was 241, so 24 points higher. In 2043, he hit 260, which I could live with. That was fine. But his OBP was 282, which is a little bit less than comfort level, and his WAR was negative, slightly underwater in 2043. Nevertheless, it was a good enough fit for middle infield for me that I went ahead and extended him 2 years at 3.5 and 3.7 or something like that for the 2 years. And then last year he just really fell off the ladder, and this year he's already started pretty lousy. If I had just been able to get a 250, 260 average and a 300 OBP out of him year over year, I would have been perfectly happy with Duarte, and I would not have scrambled so much for a middle infielder. But Duarte was one of these guys who he kind of busted for me, and I kind of learned my lesson here. Lando really, he talked about it in either a PM thread or something. He said, if you have a low I, your OBP will track contact. And so it all rides on your contact. And if the contact rating falls a little bit, or if it starts to fall, then you don't have much of a cushion for your eye doesn't give you much of a cushion. And that has been percolating. And I thought, well, anyway, it's time to send Duarte down and bring up somebody else or trade for somebody else. So anyway, we've got other options now in the middle infield. And I'm very glad to have them. Adumbe and Danny Gonzalez. Adumbe started off with a pretty lousy start to the season, but I'm in it for the long game, so we'll see how things work out. At least he was hitting better than 091. So yeah, here's Duarte. I really wanted him to work out for us. I think several people. I think Istanbul was pulling for Duarte to work out for us because he did good work for him in 2041 and 2042, but he just didn't get her done for us. So you can see in 2043 he had a lot of at bats, 539 at bats in 2043, and he did decent for us. So he was not too much of a drain. Let's see. What else? I guess that's really all I wanted to say about Duarte. I needed to move him because he was making 3.7. Oh, I guess I signed the middle of last year. I gave him he started off last year, 2044. He started off hitting well, and that's when I gave him the 1-year extension. That makes no sense. Wait a minute. In 2043, I signed. Okay, so this was for 2043 and 2044, and then I extended him to 2045. Yeah, that was basically 3.7 was basically his ARB estimate. Maybe slightly under. No, I think that was his ARB. Well, anyway, I've given up on Duarte. As good as his defense looks on paper. Good range, a great ability to turn a double play, decent arm, and outstanding. The guy doesn't throw the ball away, doesn't make errors. He only had a few opportunities this year with us, and he was okay, kind of average. But I pretty much gave up on him, and so the move was a salary move to Key West so that I could afford Ibarria and Filetti. I thought this OTP write-up was kind of humorous. Key West general manager said, "We're a better team now. We've added several pieces to the puzzle." Well, yeah. I don't know what kind of puzzle you're working on, Key West general manager, but Key West AI, but AI scriptwriter. But this was a lot better deal for me in terms of players than it was for Key West. Now, what Key West got out of it for me was my first round pick of next year and my second round pick in 2047. That was really what they got. And this was really about resetting the clock. I think Gooksta made a comment that both of these guys would be 30 years old before he is where he wants to be. So what good would it do hanging around with a couple of 30-year-old guys when you can go ahead and cash them in on first-round picks, and maybe set your start date back about 4 to 6 years. Whoever you draft, let's say you draft a high schooler who is 18 years old. Well, in 5 years, that high schooler will be 23, and if the high schooler is a good, is a good prospect, works out, in about 5 years, that prospect will be WBL ready. So this just kind of sets the Key West clock back about 5 years, and I think it does so at at a good return for them. Key West just has a great way of creating pictures, and I've been real happy to do business with them. I made a post about as long as you keep cranking out these great prospects that you can't use yet, I'll be happy to trade you picks for them. And maybe I came across as smug, but I didn't feel smug. I was just pleased as punch to do this deal with Key West. Didn't know there was other irons in the fire. Didn't know there was other trades happening in terms of Filetti, although I knew Guksta was actively shopping him. And I really had no idea what Guksta's asking price was. But I was like, I was originally going to approach him with my second round pick next year. And I thought, wait a minute. I went back and looked at the trade logs, and I had already traded my second round pick to Guksta next year. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go after it with the first round pick. Let's go all in real fast and see if we can just get this. And do it right now. And anyway, that's what happened. But I think it was a good deal for me. I don't think I could have gotten much better value out of my draft picks than these two guys. But you never know. I mean, from the Key West side, you take a gamble that you get more key pieces, better key pieces than this. And certainly, I mean, you look at Filetti, and if the OSA ratings are right, a 60 stuff versus both left and righties, a 55 movement, and a 60 to 65 control, that's good, but it's not elite by any means. And of course, with the first round pick, you're always hoping to get, elite talent. Maybe Guksta packages those two picks with another late first round pick. Maybe Moscow doesn't do good, and the 2046 pick is a high pick. But hopefully I do well, and maybe Key West packages those two picks with another late first round pick and comes up with an early first round pick of a somebody who's going to be a real impact player for them in about 5 years or sooner, depending on what their window looks like and the age of the players they draft. I guess that's it, man. I just wanted to. This all kind of happened for me in a whirlwind yesterday. It wasn't really premeditated. It just a bunch of things just kind of circling, and then suddenly, boom, lightning, and it happened in, like I said, about 16 minutes. So anyway, I kind of feel bad. I didn't know, like Fig Nuts. Fig Nuts had a deal brewing. Didn't know about that, and yeah, I mean, it's for the long haul, man. We gotta have fun together with this. So anyway, that's how it went for me. And honestly, at the end of the day, I do have I always think that I always feel like I leave plenty of ask out there on the table, and yeah, Key West has other guys that I would like to have on my staff, but I don't think I have anything left to offer them. So I'm just going to have to ride with what I got for now. There's another trade or two I'd love to make with them, but anyway, I guess that's all I got, and I guess I want to leave you with the fact that I think this is going to be a pretty darn fun year in the WBL. It has certainly started off like a horse race in the north. Amsterdam, Helsingborg, Istanbul, and Moscow all have 7 wins to start the season. And the guys, they're a couple of guys, Vegas and Seoul are just 2 games back. Berlin already looking better this year than last year. Dublin may be a concern, and Lisbon, of course, in a complete building mode. They don't have anything to rebuild from, so they're simply building. So the North League starts off fine in a frenzy, and I see all 6 of these teams kind of jumping back in, fading out, jumping back in. I don't see Amsterdam or Helsingborg doing too much fading, but these other 4 teams, the Ottomans, the Mules, the Glow, and the Pac-Men, I can see the 4 of us kind of surging and fading throughout the season, and battling for those final 2 playoff spots. Down in the South League, you got Buffalo, who finally lost a game. Behind them, a surprising Buenos Aires team, the Nachos, kind of sticking their nose up above the rest of the pack, which really surprising to me. Cairo, False Bay, I think are going to be in the postseason for sure. And Australia kind of fell back a little bit. And Key West, both at four wins this season. Key West, man, sometimes they're an early season team, which is really interesting. If you could combine Key West's early season surge with Moscow's late season surge, you'd have a team. So, yeah, the South League probably going to stratify pretty fast. The North League, I kind of don't think we're going to have a good sense of the North League until after the All-Star break, maybe after the trade deadline. Look at that old guy, DLS, man, just cranking the hits, 441. Look at these guys hitting 400. Lu Lang Chow of Lisbon, bright spot on the Lisbon roster. Alonso of Amsterdam. Oh, Garnett hitting 400 for Helsingborg. Good night. Woo, woo. Man, Garnett. He's happy to be up there in Helga. And Didier Mouton also hitting 405. Wow. Wow. Colomo came out of the box pitching for New Zealand. 26 Ks already. On par with Kasib. 26 Ks. Naka. 21 Ks. Paco. Australia could unlock a lot of value in Paco, I think. I'm kind of curious if my trade with Gugsta has influenced or made some kind of valuation on pitchers, has kind of altered the league's valuation of pitchers. I don't know, man. It'll be curious to see what trades happen here the next few weeks. Golly, Garnett. Come back, Dom. Come back. He's tearing it up in Helga. Does he already have a war rating? He has a half a war already. 2.3 VORP. Yep. Well, all right. I've dragged this on long enough, and just wanted to talk about that trade a little bit. Talk to you guys next time.